Hello, and thank you for joining us again for our series, Thrive Live series, season 4, episode 1. Today, we're going to be talking with someone who prefers to remain anonymous due to their own continued family issues, and not wanting to violate anyone else's privacy. So, our focus today is on emotional, social, and financial challenges that family members face when supporting or coping with loved ones struggling with opioid use. We're also going to provide some insights into setting healthy boundaries, finding some resources, and fostering healthy family dynamics in the face of addiction. And we'll share some advice. We'll talk about it. We're going to find out what's really been going on in this real life, real world situation. And please let me we'll introduce to you all and welcome to our studio today, Geneva Greeland. Of course, names have been changed to protect the innocent, and we're going to give Geneva a moment to introduce herself and then share a little bit about her story. So, Geneva, take it away. And welcome, Geneva, to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate being here and I look forward to our conversation.
Absolutely.
I am the child of multiple people who suffered from opioid use disorder and several other substance use disorders that they had. And I am a single mom with 2 kids who has never touched anything like that because of recovering from being a child of that.
Mm. Mhm. So, tell us a little bit more about that childhood and how old were you when you finally were able to kind of get away, or how old were you when you recognized what was going on in your family?
Um, when I first realized what was going on with my dad, I was about 3 years old, and I walked in on him using, and there were a lot of family issues going on. My parents had already separated. We had already lost my brother. My brother was put up for adoption when he was born, but they decided to keep me. And a lot of that had to do with the fact that my parents were definitely not in a place where they could raise 2 kids. I later found out that I was supposed to actually be adopted with my brother, but I was not. They ended up keeping me. And the cycle basically continued. And when I was about 3 years old, I walked in on my dad and I asked him to stop. I asked him to stop using. We had been homeless for multiple years, living on the streets, and money was not anything that I grew up with until I was taken out of that situation by Child Protective Services. My father and my mother had separated, so I was not around my father, but my mother definitely had some issues, and she was constantly homeless, constantly asking for money, constantly stealing from my grandparents or my father on occasion when we did see him, or just anybody that she could take from. And I was homeless until I was almost, I would say, 8 years old. And we would live in motels on occasion, but not often would we be allowed to stay there because my mother did not keep up with money. Any money that she took or had, or any job that she had, she would lose because she was constantly under some substance or another.
Wow, that's a heavy lift for a young child to live through.
It
Tell us a
definitely
little.
was.
Mhm. Can you share a little bit more about the impact on what you were experiencing? What did you see in your parents? How did it affect you in school, and how did it affect you, with friends? Did you spend lots of times at other people's houses with friends, or did you not? What was life like
Um,
for you as a child?
well, for school, because my mother was homeless and um, she would find my dad, tell him to take care of me, and then come and grab me again and leave when she needed to go and get her, her fix, or she had another boy or something like that. So I was never in a stable environment up until CPS took us. And I do say us because there was another, my mother had another boy after my other brother, and um, his father was also on opioids, and he together they made an even bigger mess. And we both were adopted together at one point, but before he came along, my mother just would up and leave. We didn't have stability. So I wasn't in school until I was put into the foster care system. I think I went to school for first day pictures. I'd be there for a week so that my mother could take pictures and send them off to my grandparents. And then she would take me out and we would leave again. And so there was no school. There were on occasion when I would have friends in the motels that we would stay at, um, mostly just kids who were would align that really aligned with what I was going through as well. Their parents were just as unstable as mine. And what really
Mm.
kicked off me being taken by social services was the fact that me and one of those girls was out in the parking lot of the motel we were staying at, and somebody came and gave us pills. And she passed, and I did not. And that's really what jump started us getting taken. Was I almost died from an overdose of something I don't even know. And I was told by my mother that that's not why I was taken, but as an adult, going through files and stuff, that's what I found out, is that it was because somebody gave me something I shouldn't have had as a child, and I took it. And it's a very scary thing, but as I see my parents taking everything all the time, didn't I didn't even think about it. I was too young to understand that you don't do that, because my parents were very absent.
Mhm.
And friends were really hard to keep, especially because of the unstable environment. But I think that was the first friend that I can really remember, and she then passed because of what happened. So,
Oh.
having friendships after that was even difficult. It took time. It really took a lot of time to be able to cultivate a good friendship, and therapy definitely played a huge part in that.
Mhm, mhm. I can imagine. I can imagine that's the case. So how have you coped throughout these years? Now, how's your relationship with your brothers and your any other siblings besides the two brothers that we know about?
There there are 6 of us. My mother had 6 kids. The 4 of us, the 4 oldest, I talk to all 3 of them, but they don't really talk to each other. My mom lost all of her kids through social services, and but my relationship with the oldest, because we are the oldest 4, my relationship with the 3 that are of age are, some of us struggle. I do have a sister who is a recovering alcoholic,
Mhm,
and she's working really hard with her husband, who is also sober, and they are fighting that battle together. But me and the brother that was adopted at birth, who was, right underneath me, both of us have lived very sober lives. Um, Neither of us drink too often, except, every now and again when we have family get-togethers. But we've
mhm,
really abstained from anything that is like that. And his is more along the lines of, because that's the way he was raised, and mine
mhm,
is because I made a promise to myself when I was finally able to understand, um, that I would never be like my parents. And as much as I love my parents dearly, I never want to become them. And I wouldn't wish my children to ever see or witness the things that I witnessed when I was their age. My relationship with my parents is very different. I am very close to my father. He has made a 180 and is living a wonderful life. but my mother is still in that life. She's still on the run, stealing money from my grandparents, you know, disappearing. We don't actually know where she is. So she is she is out there somewhere, and we have no contact with her whatsoever after she did an incident about a year ago. Um,
And so, Geneva, you have two families then.
I do.
Kind of. You, sounds like you really have three. Like there's
I
some other
do. I
siblings.
have my bio family, but because they were divorced, I have my dad and my stepmom. I have my mom and multiple stepdads on her front, and then I have my adopted parents. And um, in one way or another, all of them have had some sort of substance use disorder.
Mm.
And
So
so
even in the adopted family, there were some substance issues going on there as well.
they like my mom likes her wine, and sometimes she likes it a little too much. And it didn't hit me until the last time I saw them. Actually, it was, I would say, about 5 years ago. I went to go visit them, and I don't think I've ever seen my parents drink that much. And
Mm,
either I didn't see it or it didn't register. And but growing up, I was never at home. I was always off. I became a um, I didn't emancipate, but I graduated high school at 15 and moved out. So
um,
my parents really only had me for about 4 years, 5 years before I fully left and moved out and got my own place. And while I would go and see them and we'd have family dinners, I never really, as a young adult, older teen, never saw them drinking that much. So it really hit me when I was an adult that my parents were, my adopted parents at least. But in with not having a strong foundation of a relationship with my adopted parents, because I did leave at such a young age, because I did graduate so fast and went to college and got a job and lived on my own, I never saw that in them. So it would make sense with the relationship dynamic that I had with my mother, that answers a lot of questions that I had growing up.
makes sense. Makes a lot of sense,
It
actually. Yeah.
does.
So what would you say to someone, a young person, an adult, anyone right now who has lived through that experience that you're talking about? What are some advices you might give to them if they're living through that right now in this moment? What are some things that people could do to help them manage and make it through that cycle of time?
Personally, one of the biggest things that I struggled with was blaming myself. And I would say the biggest piece of advice that I can give to anybody, a child, a sibling, a grandmother, a mother who has somebody in their life who is going through that, just remember it's not your fault.
Hmm.
And just being there for them in their time of need is important, but don't let it get to the point where you believe that you are solely responsible for their actions, because it will tear you apart. And
Hmm.
therapy is a wonderful thing. And I had a therapist from the time that I was taken at the age of 8, and she helped me work through so many different things. And
Can you
unfortunately,
share a little bit of that? What's something that she might have done with you that you could share with our audience that might encourage them to seek therapy? Because therapy, does it? Would you say that therapy means that there's something wrong with you? And,
no,
and okay,
I would never say that therapy is for something being wrong at all. Um, I've never viewed therapy that way personally. My first suicide attempt was at the age of 16 after I reconnected with my father. And it was not had nothing to do with my father at all. It had to do with me realizing things from my childhood that I blamed on myself. And when I first went to my therapist after that, she sat me down and told me that there was nothing I, as a child, could have done that could have caused anything. And that is the key that you need to remember, is nothing you have done has ever been bad enough to cause somebody to do that.
Mhm.
And you need therapy is not because I was I was broken, but I was
Mhm.
not I was bending, but I was not broken. And that therapy
Okay.
helped me to get back aligned to the point where I was not bending to the point where I was almost broken.
Did you feel broken at times?
I
What
did.
were the feelings? What were the feelings that you had while you were going through this? With let's go back a little bit to when you were with your parents, either or your biological parents. What feelings and emotions would go through your mind when you were going through those situations, and when you saw your dad using, or when your mom was doing whatever she might have been doing? What kind of feelings were you having as a child? And do you recall?
The problem with the situation that I was in as a child is because of the substance use, because of the lack of money, there was such a compound issue. Was we
Mhm.
were homeless, they were using, they were not great parents, we didn't have food, there were so many problems. So
Mhm.
the hunger that I felt as a kid, because I didn't know when I was going to eat again, it would start raining and we'd have to find a bridge, and I can still to this day point to the bridge that we slept under.
Mhm.
And the compound issues that come with having the parents that were both under a substance at one time
Mhm.
was just so compiled that there was fear, there was sadness. My parents didn't get along. My mom would disappear, my dad would disappear. It was just I developed abandonment issues because of my dad being gone. And now, I know now that it was because my mom would just get up and leave. I didn't understand that as a kid. And
Mhm.
so there were so many emotions at that time that I can't pinpoint. I remember a lot of fear, lots of fear. And, when you're really hungry, you're scared. When you have no place to sleep. You're scared. My mom would go from one man to another, and these men were highly abusive.
Mhm.
It's fear, lots and lots of fear, and a lot of anger. Lots of anger to work through.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I'm glad that you survived it,
I
and
am
glad that
too.
you're here to tell your story. And it's so important, I think, for people to tell real stories, their real lives, their real stories, uh, so that they know that it's not all being made up. It's not all made for TV,
And you're
movies,
not the
or
only one.
and you're not the only one, right?
You're not
And that's
alone.
important to know, right? That you're not the only one. You can contact the Department of Behavioral Health Access Helpline 1-8887. We help if you are looking for some assistance out of a situation maybe you're going through, maybe you're with someone, a loved one, a family member, a significant other, and there is a substance use or mental health related challenge or issue right now, and you need to reach out to get some advice or some help or some support. You can call that hotline. There's also, we're going to show you later, a number for SAMHSA, or a national number. So if you're watching this from somewhere other than the Washington, D.C. area, you can recall the SAMHSA number and get referred to resources in your area. We want you to get help. You can also reach out to us at energyincorporated@gmail.com if you'd like to reach out, and we will do what we can to help get you connected to resources. Geneva, tell us as we get ready to wrap up just a little bit here, if you could tell us a little bit more um, about how you navigate now the world as an adult. What are the signs? And maybe you can help people understand what are some of the signs. Maybe they don't know if there's an issue going on in their home or their family. Something feels off, something feels not right, or it's normal. They've grown up with this. What are some of the things that you might see in someone who is using, or for a parent? You have two young children, you said. So, what would you be looking for? Behavior changes or any of that kind of stuff? What would you be looking for when to identify that maybe there's a mental health or a substance use issue going on for someone that you care about?
Specifically, my memory and long discussions that I've had with my grandmother, um, probably small things that are being stolen and you don't really notice it at first. Lots of lying. Isolation is a big one. They isolate um, a
Meaning
lot.
they isolate themselves from
They
everyone, or they
they
isolate you as
isolate
a family from others?
both. I
Okay.
was isolated from others, but my mom also isolated from me. My dad would isolate from me, but we were also, as a family, isolated from others. And so it makes you feel very lonely. And they themselves will keep you out. They'll kick you out of, especially when they are um, I don't know terminology, but when they haven't had any for a while.
Mhm.
Um, and
So when they might be drug seeking?
yes,
Hmm.
um, my best friend would probably use the term jonesing for
Okay.
something. um,
You
but
ever
it
witnessed any withdrawals or any kind of anything that dramatic? Did you see any of that as a child?
I would only say maybe once,
Hmm.
and it was a situation that when my mother was pregnant with my younger brother that I was adopted with. And her and my stepfather got into a huge argument, and he wasn't going to get her anything because she was pregnant. So she decided to go the abortion route in the bathtub in front of
Hmm.
me.
Oh
And
wow!
it
And
definitely scarred
was it
me.
successful? What
No,
did she was, so she ended up in the
she
hospital or something?
She did end up in the hospital, and my brother was saved, and I have a pretty good relationship with him today, but it definitely scarred my 7-year-old, you know, the 7-year-old child inside of me, and
Mhm.
so, I remember that fight, and I'm almost 30 years older, and it's still something that you constantly have in your head. But I remember him screaming no, and my mom just she was just so mad and shaking and almost crazy, they get this crazed look on their face if you're denying them, and it can be scary when you're a child. I can only imagine what it would be like as an adult to have to deal with that.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
but
Go ahead.
I would say the biggest thing that I remember is little things going missing and then bigger things going missing, and then the acknowledgement, "Oh, I don't know where that went,"
Mhm.
and, just a lot of theft. My mom did steal a lot of money from my grandmother, and
Mm.
identity theft and all sorts of things to be able to get what she needed.
So they're that so understanding the person that's going through this, they are looking for something, seeking for something. They need to get it by whatever means they can, and so
Yes.
they are, I would say, maybe not completely in control of themselves at that time.
At that
And
time, no, not at all.
yeah,
I
so
don't
we
think
want
she
to
could
have
have done what she did if she had been in control.
Yeah. So we want to have some compassion
Yes.
for people that are going through this, because once you have an addiction and that addiction takes over and takes control, you really do. The individual does really lose control over starting and stopping and what's going on, and they are constantly in a need to get that substance. What we know about opioids relieve pain. We know that they relieve both physical pain, emotional pain, mental pain, um, uh, all kinds of psychological pain. Allows people to escape from the places where they are, where there is the most challenge in their life, the most difficulty, and our bodies get accustomed to the medication, the drug, And so you need more of the drug to get the same effect. That's the nature of addiction. We're going to talk more about addictions throughout this series. We're going to talk more about other kinds of substances and substance use. We're going to talk about mental health and how all of this plays a role in that. And, Geneva, maybe we'll get you back again and we'll talk some more about the mental health side of this and what you've done to heal for yourself and for your family, and maybe some techniques and tools that you use now to help you navigate when you have those memories. Before we go, though, would you mind sharing with us a good memory from are there any good memories that you can remember from your childhood? And I ask this question because I want people to know that all of the experiences you have, all of your days are not bad days necessarily. There may be good days. It doesn't mean there isn't a challenge or an issue that needs to be addressed, and it doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you if there's an issue going on in your family. We want you and your family to get the help that you need, but we also want you to know that you can thrive and have an exciting life as well. So, Geneva, any good memory that you can remember from your childhood, even in the midst of all of this that you have gone through with your siblings and your parents?
Um, I can give 2 for
Hmm.
each family. My dad
Okay.
and we had a tradition where we would watch WWE wrestling, and
Mm.
before we would watch it, we would go to the 7-Eleven up the street and grab a whole bunch of Little Debbie snacks and cherry Pepsi, and we would go
Oh,
home and curl up on the bed and we would watch WWE. And to this day, I still do it with my kids. And
wow.
my other memory from my adopted parents, which is one of the indicators that now, mind you, at this time, my mom was drinking a lot. We went to Rome, and my adopted mom, and I would walk around the open flat that they have. They have statues everywhere, and she was drinking, but it was still a happy time. It was a wonderful trip, and there
Mhm.
was fights every trip that we took, but that one particularly, I don't know what it was, but we just had a fantastic time, and it
Well,
was a
you were in
beautiful.
Rome. You
We
know
were
the
in
saying,
Rome,
when in Rome, right?
right?
Rome's got
Right.
to be fun, right?
And it was a glorious time. And she was just, I don't know, unusually happy.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, we are so glad that you were able to be here with us today. And we hope that you all will join us again for another session of Thrive Live in our season 4. We are excited about this work. We are so grateful for the Department of Behavioral Health that helps to support this programming. And we hope that you'll like us on our Facebook, like us on our Instagram, like us in our YouTube channel, and share these videos and this time with someone. And if you are looking for a way to save lives, we also offer an opportunity for you to learn about the opioid crisis, to learn about the life-saving medicine, naloxone, and how you can use the Narcan brand that we use here in the DMV to reverse an opioid overdose and save lives. At the end of the day, we really want people to be well, to be healthy, to be happy, and we want to save lives. And so we're here for you. You can reach out to us again at Energy Incorporated, and that's energyincorporated at gmail.com. You can go to our website, energyincorporated.org. And we look forward to spending more time with you through these podcasts, talking to you, sharing with you, and you can join us for events that we have in the community as well. And we'll be sure to tell you more about those who are social media as they come along. So thanks again, Geneva, for being here, for sharing your story so kindly for us. And we hope that you too will live and thrive